Serpent Temple podcast. This week we're going to be looking at free releases. The first one is going to be the classic Gorguts album, Considered Dead, released in 1991.
That was Prince Philip up until about... Sorry.
We're keeping this bit in. Yeah. The second release is going to be the stunning Devil is Fine by Zeal Ardor, released in 2017, and the third release is going to be the most recent Memoriam to the End 2021. I'm not going to make a Prince Philip joke. Yeah. So Floyd, what did you think of Gorguts?
I see, one of the things I really like about Gorguts is they've had a really interesting journey as a band. And this album is like a pretty archetypal death metal album and sound. Like, it was even recorded at Mora Sound, which is like legendary studio in Tampa, Florida, and you know, it's produced by Scott Burns, and it's just it's got all the hallmarks of all those classic bands, you know, like Death and Atheist, yeah. And it's interesting because like there's such a different band here than where they're at now.
They're so different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, it's good to, I always enjoy, whenever I listen to music or get into a band, I always love listening to like the earliest material they've got, just to see like the transition they've made from their infancy. And even like Cradle of Filth, like, have you ever listened to like the early demos?
Oh yeah.
It's like some weird like grindcore death metal shit, but it is like super, like, it sounds worse than like Symphonies of Sickness. Oh. And I don't mean that in a good way, because I like the way Symphonies of Sickness sounds.
I do not like that early Cradle stuff, no.
But it's, so I think that's the main reason why I suggested this album, because I think it's always cool to listen to a band in the kind of their infant stage and how they've progressed from where they are, because like Gorguts are like uber avant-garde, like some of their shit, like Obscura is just like such a jangly, weird fucking album, and Coloured Sounds is just like a massive wall of sound. It's just almost like a, I think I said Coloured Sounds, didn't I? It's happened already, you know, but no, and it's like, so this is an album I'm quite familiar with, so I'd be interested to see hear your kind of take on it.
It's an interesting album. I'm not a huge Gorguts fan. I do like Gorguts. I mainly listen to like when they come on in the car, on like the car playlist. So I've not like gone into their albums one by one and like wine tasted the music of Gorguts properly. So this was really interesting because I had like the modern Gorguts in my head. I thought it was going to be like those albums that you mentioned. Yeah. So when I listened to this, I was like, this just sounds like how death metal sounded a long time ago, and it came out the year I was born. I think 2 months or so before I was born. So I was like, I have like a narcissistic connection to this album in that respect. So I'm like, oh, what was music like when I was being born? It's really interesting. Like it's kind of, I guess, basic, but it's still really good. It's not a criticism. It's just how it sounded to me. And I can hear like the embryo of Gorguts in a way. And I did my thing. I read through the lyrics. I didn't know they were Canadian.
Yeah, they're like French Canadian as well.
French Canadian from Quebec, right? Is it Quebec or Quebec?
I would say Quebec.
Quebecois.
If you taking the piss?
No, they would say it like that, don't they?
I don't know.
Quebecois.
I thought you were just taking.
No, I don't think so.
I go by it.
I don't think I am.
You're taking the biscuit.
I go by it because I'm a massive wrestling fan, as people know. And yes, I'm over 30 and still watching wrestling. And every time they announce someone, they always say from Montreal, Quebec. So
yeah,
that's like the American way of saying it, which
Quebec.
is probably wrong because I'm not going to finish that sentence. But they've got an interesting take on the English language.
Yes, in American, I guess. I like the concept of this album, like the idea of like every song being about a different kind of person just being left for dead, and like that's really interesting. I did not like the Miscarriage song. That is not a song I was into. I guess because, you know, like back then they were just like, oh, brutal, you know, loads of gory lady birth vagina stuff. Like, oh, what's scarier than death vaginas?
What's scarier than a woman?
Her vagina. So I get it. They were probably just young kids at the time. I still just felt really uncomfortable reading it. I think like when you're young, you don't get why stuff like that is sucky and shit. But like as an older person, I'm just like, oh, this makes me sad. However, music's great. Lyrically, like it's kind of like simple but cool, you know. Like there's a song about some guy, like I think he's walking in the rainforest and he falls into like a pit of spikes, and then like he's impaled on these spikes and he can't scream for help, and he sees people like walk past him, above him in this pit, and he can't do anything. And I'm just like, I had this existential like reaction to that song where I was just like, oh, I don't. It made me uncomfortable in a cool way, not uncomfortable in a miscarriage way.
That's like me as a kid. It's a quote I saw online, and it's like, never have I read something that's resonated more with me. And it's, I thought quicksand was going to be much more of an issue when I was a child.
Yes,
I was
so
deathly afraid of quicksand and the prospect of as a child. Like, it's like the worst fucking
I have
nightmare.
nightmares about sinkholes. I think my
they're
adult
terrifying.
version of quicksand is sinkholes because they seem like mad common, especially in Florida actually.
Yeah.
And there's loads near where I live, so sometimes I'm lying in bed having 2 a.m. thoughts. I'm just like, what if I get swallowed by a sinkhole? I don't know.
One opened in the road when I lived in Camden.
Don't say that.
The whole street just fell through.
London
dude.
is like
Literally.
having that problem because of the underground tunnels.
It was like 100 meters from the Great Portland Street Station. It was
No
like
way.
the size of a car. I just walked out my house one day and there was a hole the size of a car in the middle of the road. It was insane.
You know why sinkholes are mad scary? So I remember reading about them in geography, and because that's how I learned things is at school like 20 years ago. But anyway,
You learned something at school?
What? So basically, we did this case study, and Florida has like loads of sinkholes because of like all the geology and shit. There was this random house in Florida, and some dude was in bed, and only his room fell in, like, the sinkhole opened his room. So, like, his parents came to be like, why is my son up? And they opened the door, and there's a fucking hole
Dragged
in
me
the
into that.
ground.
Yeah, do you think, like, if there were strict Christians, they would be like, shit, this guy's been fucking wanking too much and has been fucking sent to hell?
That reminds me, we were in Sardinia, we went to the high street, and like they just newly paved the road, and this old lady was walking by, there's just a tiny like weird hole, and she goes, oh Dios mío, and it was so cute, it was the cute, and yeah, she crossed herself, and she's got a little stick, and she's like, look at this hole, like, oh my god, there's this tiny hole,
To
and
no
that
one.
was like,
She was just looking around like, oh my god, there's a hole. It was so cute.
it was just so like, not like, yeah, it was amazing. It was like from a film. Yeah. But anyway, sinkholes fucking scary. Couldn't find the guy's body because you just get swallowed by the earth and then you just get like sucked down to some like limestone thing. It's horrifying.
Well,
Fuck that.
the sinkhole in Camden, I always thought that you always think that the earth is just going to be like substrate, like road, gravel upon dirt, and it's just all goes all the way down. But when you see the sinkhole,
Like it
you're
is in
like,
Minecraft.
oh, the road is like that thick, and then there's just a gaping void underneath it. That's insane.
Do you know what's really scary, right? So you know the proportions of the Earth's crust is exactly the same as the skin on an apple. And everything else underneath that is just magma. Magma! And there are currents inside the magma as well. Like convection style currents, and they move all the places.
See, that's kind of cool.
It's fucking it's really cool, yeah.
Before we move on from the topic of sinkholes, because I can't picture the next time this topic's going to come up.
Yeah, we need to get it all out now.
Yeah, it's like, have you seen the towns? I think some of them are in America where they've done the fracking and it's caused towns to just collapse. It's terrifying. It's one of the most terrifying things I've seen. There's some footage of it. I'll show it to you. It's some mad shit.
That is so scary. Like, just the ground just disappearing and you being swallowed up by the earth and, like, just drowning in soil is such a horrifyingly brutal, scary thing.
But if you're into fucking planet Earth and into Vor, that's probably the best way to go. To being eaten by Mother Earth.
Oh, nice.
So.
I was like, where is this going?
Yeah. So I've been watching a lot of Vor recently.
Well, there's also
Star Wars.
the things with like aliens. One of the main schools of thought for alien contact is the Hollow Earth theory, right?
Oh, that's such a... That's
Well,
not
it's
the
Bangkok
main
Hollow Earth.
school
That's
of
actually quite good.
thought.
No,
That's
but
not
like
the main school of thought.
but okay, I misspoke there. But it's basically one of the different theories.
It's one of the
One theoretical threads is
it's
that
one of
like
the stupider things.
I think it's
Hollow Earth
cool.
is dumb. It doesn't... Like, if the Earth was hollow, there would be no earthquakes or volcanoes.
How do you know it's not an alien?
Yeah, how do you know they're not doing it?
You can tell, like, so basically when there's an earthquake, you can tell on the other side of the world because of the way S waves and P waves work. Go look into it. It's just, like, completely stupid that people would think the Earth is hollow. You can literally tell what the density of the Earth is based on how seismic waves move through the Earth, and that you can tell when, like, earthquakes are happening on other sides of the world. Also debunks flat Earth theory because, like, if you can tell there's an earthquake in Japan when you're in, like, America, like... Whatever, anyway.
I'll disbelieve flat Earth when I see it. But it's Tell you another thing. That's you know why there's not many underground stations in South London,
Why's that?
particularly southeast, because the ground is too kind of fucked up there
Is
for
it
lack
not?
of
Is it swampy? Is it because of the river?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think it's quite like soft and kind of it's not like it wouldn't
clay
hold.
soil.
And I also heard another rumor, which was that there's allegedly a lot of World War II and one mines that have not been detonated there, and that's the main reason why you don't get underground stations in southeast London.
And that's why it's really annoying to live there.
Yeah.
Yeah, it sucks.
But you going back to Gorguts, so we've extensively covered the topic of
Hollow Earth, flat Earth,
the
aliens.
consistency of the ground in southeast London. You mentioned something that I thought was a really cool fact because you said about the album, it does sound kind of basic and stuff. And it's funny because if you're introduced to death metal through like the Morris Sound style, and then I think you've got a better appreciation for it because like the newer production, I mean you saw it with Akakoka of all bands, I mean that's such a fucking, so far ahead of, what these guys
It's a
were.
different, almost genre completely, really.
And that newer sound of production's kind of like a lot punchier and it's a lot more kind of refined.
It's easier to listen to in a lot of ways.
Like the whole Morris Sound thing is like it's almost deliberately murky and it's a sound that's like coming back now. There's a lot of like OSDM bands that are trying to recapture it. But it's interesting because I always thought that, if you're a newer school death metal fan, you listen to these albums, you're probably not going to like them because they do sound kind of basic and they are a bit boring and the structures are very similar and the production throughout this whole album it's quite monotonous at times. But I mean, I like it because Roadrunner were doing these really good series in the early 2000s where they would release 2 albums from like the death metal bands used to have on the labels. So they'd done 2 albums by Pestilence, Suffocation, Gorguts had this album, and The Erosion of Sanity, the second album, and the Suffocation double album as well. And that was actually my introduction into death metal because I heard a Dying Fetus song and I was just like, this sounds really cool. So then me being like slightly like obsessive, I was like, I want to start from the beginning though, so let me see who like the first bands were. So like I appreciated this sound and almost got like the natural progression of the production. Whereas I think when you're trying to work back retroactively, it sounds kind of shit, to be honest.
There were aspects of the production I liked. Like I liked how the drums sounded. I liked how fat the bass was. And it was really heavy album. I thought it felt nostalgic. That's how it felt. I don't know if that's like just something that's new. I also saw there was some cool guest things.
Got our man Chris Barnes, the 6 feet under
Yes.
420 blazer.
On free tracks. There's also a guest guitar solo. He's on free tracks.
Yeah.
There's also a guest guitar solo by James Murphy, who also played with Death, Obituary, and Testament.
Yeah, James Murphy's a bit of a legend. That's a good solo as well, because I think it's on the last track, Inoculated Life.
That's it, yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, because he's got that kind of, he's a very, technically proficient guitarist, so, you could just see it was quite a recognisable sound he's got, because, as much as the guitarists are good in this band, I always thought their solos were quite a bit more kind of atmospheric and emotive, they're quite typical of that style, whereas James Murphy was just laying down some fucking killer technical shit.
Yeah, and we also need to talk about the artwork as well, which is, we have a double artwork doozy this week. We have 2 Dan Seagrave album covers. He's also Canadian. Well, he's not Canadian, he lives in Canada. He was born, I think, in the UK.
I thought he was English, yeah.
But he lives in Canada now.
That makes sense.
Yeah, he was born, the Midlands? Oh man, I'm fucking this up. I just forgot, it says he lives in Canada, because I did the research on this 2 weeks ago, so I forgot half of my stuff.
Half right, I mean, you got dual citizenship if you're British, so technically you can,
he's both. That's cool. Yeah, it's a Dan Seagrave cover, that's worth noting. He's a legendary artist, he's worked for a shit ton of awesome bands.
I'm fucking gutted. I used to have a long sleeve Suffocation tee of the Effigy of the Forgotten album, which is one of his sick album covers, and it was such a cool design. I have no idea where it is.
Oh no!
But fuck knows, no idea. But what was cool was what Shem was telling me the other day about how there was a reissued version of Considered Dead, right?
I think it was the early demos of Gorguts, yeah.
Oh,
it has
was
3 bonus tracks of the demos, right? Or am I imagining that?
I actually saw it on Dan Seagrave's old blog, I think, when I was looking for something else.
Yeah.
For another episode, and it came up on his personal blog. So it was basically it's the album cover for a CD, they released early collected demos from like just the early years.
Oh,
I don't
right,
think it was from a
sorry.
particular album. It
Okay.
was just like, you know, like pre-colored sounds or whatever. Yeah, it's really cool. But Floyd, did you wanna? Sorry, I don't want to take over.
No. I was like, got caught up with brushing the.
It's funny because Shem like you can't see Shem behind the camera, but he passed it to Floyd like he kind of did this like elaborate hand gesture.
Yeah.
That's really funny.
I
It
didn't
was
want to
cool. It was like the it was just like the fucking like the album cover like 20 years later. It was
20
it was
years
just
later.
super cool.
Yeah, it's the cover of Considered Dead. Yeah, like
Yeah.
20 years later, but it's also got the ones from the second album, the little cage things. With the
Oh
people
yeah,
in.
it's like the little like
They're
sort of
in.
sci-fi.
They're
things,
on
yeah.
that picture as
Oh,
well.
that's so
So it's the
cool.
art combined from the first two albums combined.
Oh, that's sick.
But then it's supposed to be like, I think he said like 500 years in the future or whatever. So the
Oh,
the
wow.
ceiling of the tomb has fallen in,
Yeah.
and there's all this like alien, like flora and fauna like growing in around the old. It's really cool, but it's literally the same tomb or whatever is on the front cover of Considered Dead. Yeah.
That's cool because it's similar with Memoriam because you've got
Yeah, it
those,
is.
like the king, like the dead king on the pyre being like,
Yeah,
taken.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
so I
really like
that.
those Memoriam covers. They're cool.
I love it when artists have like continuity across their discography. I think that's really impressive.
I think Seagrove's particularly good for that.
Interesting about Dan Seagrave is when I was doing A-level art, I wanted to use his artwork. It's like, because when you do A-level art, you've got to have a link to an artist. You're not going to get a good grade unless you're somewhat mimicking another artist's work.
That's
Not like I can ever fucking do what Dan Seagrave did, but the whole thing was, I was just like, oh, I really like this guy's art, because I was like super into death metal at the time. And my art teacher actually says, no, you need to pick someone that's more known. You're not going to get a mark. So he was just like, oh, pick Geiger instead. And I do fucking love Geiger, for the record. Like, Geiger is amazing.
At least your art teacher knew who Geiger was.
Yeah. But, you know, it's just like just another example of the bullshit curriculum of
Yeah.
creative arts
Yeah.
taught in school.
Oh, damn it.
But I tell you, I want to say quickly, my favourite track on the album, I want to give some of the tracks some love, is Bodily Corrupted. And it kind of starts with that scream, bloody gore, death feel. I think it's worth mentioning that a lot of the members of this band were highly influenced by death.
Yeah.
And every band around this time, you know, you could just, like, they really were like the progenitors and forefathers of the scene, like down to the vocal stylings, and just like even the thrashier elements of the riffs. And like, you kind of hear it in this track, but it's got a really like, I love it when a death metal band has like a kind of like a half-timey sort of thrash riff in it. I think that's when death metal's at its absolute fucking pinnacle, when they combine like the speed of death metal with like a sick, like kind of moshy thrash riff, and that's kind of what this track has, and it's always been one of my favourite tracks on the album. And I think this is one of the one that has backing vocals from Chris Barnes.
Oh, cool.
Do you ever hear about the time Chris Barnes got in a fight with Travis Ryan from Coward's
Yeah.
Capitation?
What happened?
It was, I mean, there's like two sides of the story, so it's like kind of conflicted. I think most people are kind of veering towards Travis Ryan's events, but I think he was sucker punched by him or something.
Yeah, like did he like Chris Barnes like punched him and ran away or something? It was really weird.
Yeah, he punched him that ran into his trailer, but I mean, apparently
But,
it's
like,
all ironed out. Everything's cool.
Cattle Decap were supporting 6 Feet Under, I guess,
Yeah,
on tour, and that was when they were like a smaller band, and like Chris Barnes was like, "Oh, you can't put your merch over here" or something. This is what
Yeah,
Travis
that's what it
Ryan
was,
said. Like
yeah.
he was like Travis Ryan said that Chris Barnes was being like a bit rock star or whatever.
Right.
And like throwing his weight around, and like they were just trying to be cool to everyone and stuff, and they just didn't feel like they were getting very fair treatment. But there was something did happen that led to the physical altercation, but I can't remember exactly what.
Chris Barnes.
Chris Barnes rules.
I want to say one cool thing, because the first time I ever heard his vocals, which was on their second album, Tomb of the Mutilated. You want to talk about problematic lyrics? Fucking read the early fucking Cannibal Corpse stuff. But the first time I heard that dude's vocals, I was like, the fuck is this? It's like the first time you hear that
So
super guttural style, and I thought it was
Yeah.
super cool.
The old Cannibal Corpse cover of Roots Bloody Roots is so sick.
Oh, that's what is that on? Because I heard that.
I downloaded it legally back in the day.
Yeah, I also procured it from a website that wasn't called Minimax.
Yeah. I don't know.
It was a lemon shopping
Yeah,
website.
Yeah. Oh, I love Chris Barnes. Have you seen the used car advert? He's on like, there's like a used car court where
Is
he
this
lives.
like the punk butter?
And he's on like some cable TV advert. for like
shit,
used
I've heard about this.
cars,
I've not
and
seen
he's
that.
just standing there. Like he's so awesome. I love how like.
There's a really awkward interview with like him and Chuck being interviewed by someone from like Headbangers Ball, and
Really?
I think
they
I've
just
seen
come
it.
across like total like stoner.
Yeah, they're just like not interested in the interview. Is that the
They
one?
can't, but they just come across like, forgive me, your typical socially awkward metalhead. And it's like,
Fair dues.
and it's like, it's funny because if I'd watched that while first getting into the bands, I wouldn't have believed they were the people responsible for the music I was listening to. I'd be like, no fucking way. But so that's why I love Chuck so much, because with his t-shirt, like the fucking the one that with all the cats on it, I thought it was super cute.
I love when people have a sense of humour like that, and they can also be absolutely terrifying musically. It's fantastic. Speaking of musical terror, do you want to move on? Or
I think
do
it's
you have
time to move on.
Any final remarks for the Considered Dead?
No, I just think it's just adds to a point I was making earlier. I think for me, I think they're actually quite an underrated band.
I think they're
to be honest.
definitely.
Yeah.
They should be more respected for how seminal they've been, I think.
Yeah, and I think even especially for the Canadian kind of death metal scene, because I think that Crypt gets a lot of praise as like the unsung sort of like cult heroes of the Canadian death metal scene, and but like I think even the Canadian scene in general is quite underrated because they've carved out their own niche for quite a lot of the subgenres, especially like black metal and death metal, and it's always cool to hear a band that was one of the first ones to be doing it.
Agreed.
And plus, like Rush as well, like they're one of the fucking best bands ever. I love Rush.
Rush are fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah. Are they Canadian?
Yeah.
Shit.
I hope they
I
are.
just assume like most 70s bands are English.
Geddy Lee looks Canadian.
Yeah, they're 100%
How
Canadian.
does someone look Canadian?
I don't know, but Geddy Lee does.
I'm gonna Google Geddy Lee after this just to see like what a Canadian person looks like. Apparently, that's so strange.
But
Is it like in South Park?
Maybe, yeah, like there's a particular look about him where I'm just like, if someone said, oh, he's Canadian, I'd be like, Canadian, it's my turn, isn't it? Like Luke LeMay, he looks somehow Canadian as well.
Yes,
I love Luke LeMay, he's so cool.
He's
Listen
so
to
cool.
interviews with
He's got a
him.
really lovely name.
He's got a beautiful, softly spoken voice. He seems so nice, I can't do an impression of
If
him.
my name was Luke LeMay, I'd also have a beautiful voice. Because I'd say my name in the most beautiful way I could. Because I'd be called Luke LeMay. What a beautiful
Luke
name!
LeMay. It is
Luke
a gorgeous
LeMay.
name, isn't it?
I love it.
And he's like, because he's like literally a full-on classical composer, right?
No way.
Yeah,
It's a
that's
perfect name
so-
for a composer.
Yeah, like he went away and studied classical music, like really hard, and then he's
Wow.
like, there's an interview with him, like Coloured Sands era, Coloured Sands era, and he's saying like death metal is just as complicated and complex as classical music, and it doesn't get,
100%.
So that was like his approach to Coloured Sands. I think it was like, or maybe obscura, but I feel like with Coloured Sands in particular, he's talking about how like he approached it. Like he composed it before. He didn't just sit and write riffs. Like he wrote all the music first.
I think that makes perfect sense because you listen to the album and it's like it is like a wall of like instrumentation.
It's amazing.
Also, like because Obscura is just like some sort of weird jazz death metal music from hell. But like, yeah, it's. I think Luc Lemay has got because you know the band Cataclysm. They're also French Canadian.
With a K.
Yeah.
Okay.
And 2 Ks as well, so it's Katakli. So
That's it, yeah.
I just assumed they'd be a German thrash band.
I always thought they were German.
Yeah.
no, it's,
Maybe there's two.
I thought they'd be like Creator. I was like, it's a band with a K.
Oh,
They're not
yeah,
German.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's oh gosh.
But Cataclysm French Canadian, and I think Luc Lemay might be from a similar area where they've actually got a lot of like mainland European sort of heritage. Like the singer of
It's
Cataclysm is basically Italian. He's got, and I think Luc Lemay is quite similar. Like I think he's got quite a cool ethnic background. So that sounds wrong. I've got that bit.
So hard not to say it.
Yeah, for fuck.
Oh my goodness.
But Luc Lemay is a cool guy.
Sorry. Cool ethnic background.
If someone said that about me, I'd lose my shit. But it's different because this guy's clearly not like
No.
like a non-white.
It's
person,
funny.
I guess.
No, it's funny. I completely get what
I
you're saying.
get what you're saying.
Yeah.
Don't worry.
That's enough about Luc Lemay.
Next band.
Next band is Zeal Ardor. I say Ardor, but you've been saying Ardors, and now I'm saying Ardor as well.
Wait, what you've just said there sounds like the same word twice. What do you say?
Zeal and Ardor.
Oh, I say Ardor, don't I?
You do
Yeah.
say Ardor.
Ardor.
You put an OU in there.
Yeah, it doesn't have
It
you.
is an OU.
No, it's, I think it's American
Is it?
spelling.
DOR, yeah. So
This is I think it's an American spelling of Ardor. Ardor.
Yes.
Oh, I'm doing it again.
Presumably we spell it with a U, right?
I believe we do.
O-U.
But I still say ardor. If I'm going RP, it's like, oh, he had much ardor. Ardor. He's an ardorous man. Much ardor. Anyway, Devil is Fine. This is only 24 minutes long and has 9 songs or tracks in it. So do you wanna go ahead on this one?
Right. So I'll tell you what this album reminds me of. And you got to bear with me here.
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever listened to the first Berserker album?
I don't know if it's I've listened to Berserker's discography, but I don't. It's been a long time.
So they the second album onwards, they kind of refined their sounds.
I know exactly what you mean. The electronic tracks, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the second album, they've kind of refined it and managed to combine some of the electronic influences with the actual carcass worship. Although I don't mean that in a bad
The
way.
blast
Because
beats.
fucking everybody loves carcass.
Fuck yeah.
But the first album, it's literally they had a metaphorical board and all these fucking musical ideas and just throw as much shit at the board as possible and would include it even if it would stick or not. And that is what this album reminds me of, because it's so all over the place and there's so many different elements from so many different genres. I mean, there's the 3 tracks, the Sacrilegium.
Yeah, the intermediary electronic tracks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And one of them, I think it's number 3, really reminds me of this old game I used to play on the Mega Drive called, I wrote it down because I knew I'd forget. The track is called Master of Darkness, which was a Castlevania ripoff.
Ah, nice.
Because they hadn't ported Castlevania to Mega Drive yet.
That's
So they had their own game, which is a ripoff. And the first level, you're actually in London by the Thames, and you're looking for Jack the Ripper, and you got to kill Jack the Ripper. But but anyway, that track really, it has some really, and the interesting thing about those tracks is they're so similar to the Berserker album. Those elements are so jarring and loud in the mix that it's kind of almost disarming in a way. And it's but I actually really dig it. I think it's super cool.
Have you listened to early Igor?
Yeah, it's fucking equally as bizarre.
The similar kind of vibe. I don't know if you know how Zeal Ardor, how Manuel Gagno got his thing.
Was this the
4chan?
Yeah.
So,
I'll let you tell it because you're doing it a better way than me.
Well, I don't know, but we'll see. So basically, the way that Zeal Ardor even formed was that Manuel Gagno would go on 4chan and he'd kind of ask people to give him 2 genres to put together and make a cool thing. It was a challenge to him to create stuff. So he puts up this post on 4chan, and some dickhead basically said, and I'm quoting, "fuse black metal with N-word music." So Gagno is non-white. He has I believe heritage that relates to the music that he's doing with this the kind of. If you haven't listened to Zeal Ardor, it's a mixture of slave chanting with you can hear the clinking of chains, and he is exploring. His concept is, what if slaves, instead of adhering to Christianity, turn to Satanism to get free slavery? And that's kind of the concept of this album and of much of Zeal Ardor, which is really fascinating because he's taking the satanic element of black metal and inverting it, so he's inverting the inverted. Yeah. And he's mixing it, with this cool shit. It's really fucking good. So he did one song, but then he kept going, and that's how Devil is Fine happened.
Yeah, it's something that I don't think ever really on paper should work, but I think it actually does meld pretty fucking well. It's really cool as well. I want to talk a little bit about, because it's got some elements of Delta blues, which is a type of blues that was inspired by I think it was the Mississippi sort of Delta Bay area, and there was a musician called Robert Johnson. You ever heard of Robert Johnson?
I think I have.
So he was like a super uber skilled Delta blues musician and guitarist. And when you listen to the old blues stuff, you think you think metal guitarists are proficient. You listen to some of the old guitarists that used to do blues, and it's it's another level, man. But people didn't believe that he became so good naturally.
Oh, is this the Devil?
Yeah.
Crossroads guy.
Yes.
Yeah,
this is him.
This guy, yeah.
So, and I thought it's just so cool that people thought he was so damn good that he thought that he struck a deal with the devil with
Devil
this
went down to Georgia.
handcrafted, and it's just super cool.
That's amazing.
And I think that's what I like about the, because it's funny because any interview with Manuel, he's almost kind of downplaying a lot of the serious kind of undertones of the album, because like you said, it started off as just like this concept and this project that's kind of evolved into this fully fledged thing now. But I think what's interesting is just how well it melds together and just how like kind of sincere it sounds.
I think it really works because both those, like, that music was born out of resistance, and so was black metal. So like conceptually, they're both really similar. And I think as well, like, I mean, it's just honestly like it's one of those things that like we owe a lot of modern music to blues.
Yes.
We owe so much of modern, like almost all of it. Like
All
honestly,
metal music.
all metal, 100%, because metal comes from rock. Rock. That's what rock came from. And like the first heavy metal songs were super, super bluesy. You know, if you listen to that 70s rock shit, if you listen to what we're going to be reviewing in the next episode, So Lord Baltimore, that was one of the first instances of references to heavy metal.
Yeah, that blew my mind.
It's really cool, isn't it?
Yeah.
So, you know, like, all these people who like think that they're like elitist and Nazi and shit, well, you better stop listening to metal, mate.
Yeah.
Like, you're not doing a good job, are you? Well, yeah, that's that. So it's really interesting conceptually, and like musically it works really fucking well, and Gagno has done his research when it comes to like the Satanism. He's not just doing like bland Satan, yay, he's actually gone and read like occult books, which is ironic because a lot of occultism is super fucking racist.
Yeah.
Like Aleister Crowley, massive racist, massive anti-Semite. He like, his views on women are not great.
But there's something so kind of rebellious and respectful of the fact that someone takes something that is so, you know, it's almost like reclaiming something and twisting it.
He's not even reclaiming it. He's kind of,
Or stealing it.
he's like appropriating it, and he's twisting it to in like a rebellious way that is like what these people wish they could be doing.
Yeah.
You know, like what some dude in a cloak and like a Baphomet rug in a room surrounded by skulls and candles wish they could be as dangerous as as like progressive. And you know, this music is like really cool, and I think, I don't know if Gagno was necessarily being that political, but it's fucking political, whether you like it or not. This kind of music is, because the way that he's taken these things and like in a way highlighted stuff that I've never really properly thought about in terms of like the dynamics of music and how people can appropriate the occult and use it in like very shitty racist ways. I'm not saying all occult practice is necessarily that. I mean, we use tarot and psycards on this podcast, and we absolutely use it in a non-racist, like non-shitty way, 100%. So I think it's really cool that Gagno is like, you know, quoting the Lesser Book of Solomon, and he's taking this shit from Crowley, which I absolutely detest Crowley. You can come fight me about that, and we'll have a big long conversation about why Crowley sucks. But yeah, it's awesome. Like, he's quoting the names of these demons from...
That's in the Children's Summon track, right?
That's it.
Cool.
That's it. Yeah, absolutely. And like, you know, let me see. There was like a way he did it. The first 7 demons are the highest ranking demons, skipping over a few dudes. They have awesome names, man. Demons have lovely names. Barbatos, Payman, and Bua. He skipped those guys out. The order is unimportant, or going up to the magic number 7, then skipping to the next prime number. The title Children's Summon could be connected to summoning of these demons. And the song also ends with "Come on down," perhaps an invitation to the demons. So that's cool. Yeah.
I think that's super cool. There's actually, you mentioned Aleister Crowley, I think there's a vocal sampling from the first techno track that's used as the main beat of that sort of drum and bass, almost dubsteppy sort of track, which I'm guessing probably isn't your thing. I was quite interested to hear your take on the more electronic aspects of
I actually didn't mind some of it.
Oh, that's good.
Some of it is, I'm a little bit like, I'm quite fussy when it comes to electronic music. As you well know, I have a real hatred of synth, like bad synth, which is most synth. But it's actually really good. I like the kind of like riffy repetitiveness of this like minimalist style that you can find in electronic music, which I don't mind in that context. And I think it's a really cool juxtaposition between all the songs. It's like you're fast traveling from like one area of a song to the next one, and then you kind of arrive and you're like, oh, what's next? And it's just like, it's always surprising, and I really like that. That's really a good thing.
Yeah, it's like, I think he even said himself that the production was like super, super lo-fi. And you could tell it is, like, it's got a real raw, like, you know, there's so many parts of it are so loud in the mix, but like it works because I think, you know, even the nature of melding two apparently opposing styles of music, and kind of mashing them together is always going to be something that's abrasive. I don't think it was ever meant to sound like like an almost perfect kind of synchronization. But and you know what, like, just going on to the Satanism thing quickly, I think, at the end of the day, he's kind of made it fucking exciting again, because I'm fucking bored of Satanism and metal. I don't give a fuck. Like, if I see a new band and they're doing the same old, like, satanic tropes, and I'm just like, oh. So it just reminds me of, like, the second wave black metal stuff, or just some of the death metal shtick that is just super old now. And I think this is actually making it kind of fresh and exciting again, because, like similar artists we've covered here in the past, it's a new perspective and it's fresh. Like, when you combine something, it creates something new. You know
what really, for me, is exciting Satanism? Is this Little Nas. Is that his name?
Oh, that dude that done the music video about doing a lap dance on... is
amazing. Like, 100% props to that guy for being more satanic and metal than literally any black metal or satanic band I've ever encountered in my life. Like, that guy nailed it. That is like the most...
No pun intended.
Like, it's cool. He learned to fucking pole dance for that video, and he looks so cool. He looks bomb as shit. Like, props, man. That's the metalist thing of the year.
I'm just imagining all these, because like it's funny, because the whole I don't know how we're getting onto the mumble rap genre here, but like the whole mumble rap genre is kind of a lot of the artists are taking inspiration from like even like bands like Deicide and stuff.
No.
Yeah. There's a guy called Ghostmane. I think it's Ghostmane.
He sounds like a Pokemon.
Yeah, he does.
He's white.
If it was your Pokemon, you'd be called Nina.
Nobody who's listening to this will get that reference, but it's fucking funny.
I don't know, we've spoken about it a couple of times.
Have we?
Yeah,
oh,
we'll bring it up as well.
I love that you do.
But like he's like got like a real like metal aesthetic, and like in the music it's like Post Malone. Post Malone's like mad into like deathcore and shit apparently.
He reps some like legit artists.
Yeah.
He was in a metal band.
Was he?
Yeah, he was a metal guy. He was in a metalcore band before he decided. Yeah, like he started doing the Post Malone stuff as like just like bedroom stuff between his band. I think he was a guitarist, I think.
Yeah.
Damn.
Yeah.
That's cool. And then you realise, oh shit, this stuff is actually what people want to hear.
Yeah.
But it's like Skrillex as well. Skrillex used to be in the metalcore band.
No way.
From first to last, they were sick.
Yeah, I was trying to remember the name.
Skrillex was in that band?
Yeah, he was the singer.
Shit.
Sonny Moore.
But the original point / joke I was building up to was just like, I'm just waiting for one of them to see Glenn Benton with his inverted crucifix, and like, oh yeah, that's a cool idea. And then all these mumble rappers have
21 Savage, didn't he have that?
Lil Uzi Vert, I think, has
a
diamond embedded.
No, I think 21 Savage literally had an inverted cross tattooed on his forehead.
Oh, is it tattooed?
Oh, is it? Oh.
I think
so. If it's not him, if it's got
No, this isn't the diamond guy, this is another guy.
The diamond guy that's wild. I was looking at that diamond for a long time. As a jeweler, I was fascinated by how it was like set into his. Yeah, that's so cool. It's crazy. I love it. But it's gonna fall out. Implants always fall out, don't they?
I think he's got like a subdermal
implant,
and then it like screws on the diamond.
Wow.
The diamond's removable. It's not.
That's mental.
So you can change depending on your outfit and your mood. That is so cool.
I think that's what I read.
I would probably get a ruby or an emerald if I was going to do that. I like conundrums. They're the best. Anyway. Yeah.
But one thing, this is going to sound a bit like a diss, but it really isn't intended as this. Like, a lot of the metal components in this album are very simplistic. And like, but what I think is super cool about the album is the way you touched on it a little bit. The way it's juxtaposed is what makes it super cool. Like, that's kind of what makes it fresh and exciting. And just the little touches and flourishes, like even like the sound of the chains clanking, and he uses that in a couple of tracks, like Devil Is Fine, which is like a monster track. Like that track is
so catchy.
Yeah, and it's mad. It's got mad views and popularity.
Yeah. The video is really cool as well.
I love the video. It's cool.
Yeah.
And it's
what's the video like? I haven't seen it.
It's like a guy in chains.
Oh,
and there's like, I think there's like a font of blood.
Cool.
And you can like see stuff in the...
Yeah, I think so.
So cool.
But the cool thing is that track like doesn't actually have much like metal elements in it. But there's like a kind of a wishy like post-metal like riff going off in the back.
It's heavy though.
But it's good. It's good. Like it was heavy almost emotionally, and I think that can sometimes be heavier than the fucking blast beats.
Blues is heavy as fuck. It's like the saddest music. It's music about like stuff that metalheads are into, like emotions and like it's not about like falling in love. It's about like losing your fucking family. I mean, it's also about falling in love, but it's also about tragedy. Like if you read the lyrics for something like Summertime, it's about like being really poor and like watching a rich family and like you're looking after a child and you're like, your mum is rich, no, your dad is rich and your mum's good looking, so don't worry, you're gonna be okay. There's no point in crying.
Summertime is Sunbather, like years before it ever happened. It's
one of my favourite pieces of music. It's one of the first pieces of music I learned to sing. I listened to the Nina Simone version and she's singing it in a club, and at the end she just starts laughing. She's like, because you're talking about the cotton being high in the fields, that's something those people in the club would relate to, like working, busting their asses, and like in the song she starts like ad-libbing and talks about like working loads and everyone, you can just kind of feel the vibe and like it's just really interesting. It's really interesting because you can feel the class divide and the race divide in the music. Even the way it's performed makes a huge difference as well. It's so interesting.
Yeah, that kind of like goes into what I've been saying for a while, And I think, funnily enough, I think Ice-T actually put it quite well, because I think he was being interviewed once about Body Count, who I've still never listened to. My friend Jax tried to get me to listen to him for a while. Apparently they're pretty good.
It's so good.
Is that the chat shit get shot?
Yeah. Talk shit get shot.
Oh yeah, that was actually good.
Yeah. That was really good.
But like he said, like at the end of the day, like you've got bands that sing about like Satanism and the devil and
yes.
And fucking like, and there's enough bands singing about Vikings and Lord of the Rings shit and fantasy elements. Like that's cool to a certain extent. But he was saying like to him the real devil is walking down the street and someone pulling a gun out and pointing it at his head. Like that is like the devil incarnate on the planet that we live on. And I feel like that's just such a cool concept, because it's like I think that's why people would connect to something, whether it be this or other works that are a bit more introspective and a bit more connected to the real world, because that is the shit that we actually deal with.
Yeah.
As opposed to, like fucking Sauron, fucking...
Sauron's a metaphor for the man.
Yeah.
there's that interview with Neurosis, and Steve Von Till's talking about how, like, what they make is like, they see it as like soul music. And it's just heavy because of the emotion that goes into it.
Yeah.
And that's what they concentrate on. So if they play a big riff, it's because it matches the mood of what they're singing about, which I think feeds really well with what you were saying about Zeal Ardor. Yeah, it's a similar deal.
And I think like it's the same in blues as it is in metal. If it's slower and simpler, it's easier for it to sound heavier, and it's easier to convey something with music that has more space in it, because you're able to fill that space with whatever you've got, I feel. Whereas with like faster music, I feel like you've got to rely more on technicality for it to sound impressive. So I think that can be like a real big factor in how heaviness kind of works and why it works so well. Because in a way, black metal, even though you're playing like a fast blast beat, you're actually creating loads of space. When you're doing that too, you're actually like you're kind of adding color to the background, and then you have space to put over the top, and that's where the heaviness actually goes, in my opinion. I don't know, that's really conceptual.
No, that
actually makes perfect sense to me. One cool fact about the album, did you look up who was on the album cover at all? Or
who's on the album?
It's like an infamous gentleman called Robert Smalls, who was a former slave who basically freed himself and 17 others. He commandeered a ship, travelled to another part. I'm not too well versed in the history.
Go ahead, yeah.
But he commandeered a ship, like a naval ship, went to another part. I think he ended up residing in the North Carolina, I believe, at the end. But he ended up becoming a successful businessman, a politician, and he actually ran, he was actual, an elected member. And that's who, I think Manuel was saying that, when he wanted him on the album cover, because it's almost like the personification of rebellion in that kind of systemic oppression that was just so rife at that time.
That is really cool.
And obviously, and then it's got the sigil of Lucifer is imposed on the front, so it's just a really cool.
I love the logo. Yeah, it's really cool.
Is it just the Leviathan? It's not the Leviathan cross.
It's slightly different. It's the Lucifer sulfur sigil.
No, that's the Leviathan cross.
It's a V. It's like the V from it inverted. So that's like the.
Is that also a symbol for sulfur? Because the Leviathan cross is the symbol for
the
sulfur.
Leviathan cross incorporates a symbol for sulfur, I think.
Right.
So it's like he's taken the V at the bottom of the Leviathan cross, and then he's put like a Z, or so he's put something else over it.
Yeah, okay.
He's taken it and changed it. He's made his own sigil, which I think is badass. I mean, what's more satanic than that?
But like we have a quick shout out to my favourite track, which I think I like. Come On Down. I think that's a really good track.
I love Come On Down as well.
Because do you know what is cool? Because I feel like that's a good amalgamation of all the kind of separate styles on one track. Because like I feel like some of the other tracks are a bit fragmented and only encompassing certain elements of what he's presenting, whereas this is a good representation of it all.
Yeah.
And it's just super catchy. It's so weird to hear such catchy, and he's got a really soulful voice as well.
It's like really distorted and heavy, but also emotional and soulful. It's like really rough, but also stunning. It's like such a bluesy voice. It's great. Yeah.
And it's just it's just crazy that it took a random. Kind of like ill-advised 4chan posts to kind of spur on something. It just kind of shows how something so genuine can come from somewhere which was just so kind of innocuous in a way.
It feels like in itself act of resistance. Like he trolled the troll and he did real good.
Yeah.
And like this album is such a good precursor. It's not even an album, it's an EP. It's a good precursor to Stranger Fruit, which is like the album that Gagno, is it Gagno or Magno? Oh my god.
You've been saying Gagno, so I hope it's that.
It is.
Thank goodness. Released afterwards, I can't remember what year, but it's a bloody good album and it's a lot better. This was kind of like the manifesto. It was like the embryo of what Zeal Ardor became, and they really came into themselves into that album. And there's like some live, they are fantastic. I hear. I really regret that I didn't see them.
Yeah,
live.
I've got a few people who said they're pretty stunning live, and it's and that's what I was kind of getting at with like the Berserker like comparison as well, because they kind of had like a really weird first album / EP, which was just like loads of crazy ideas thrown at the wall, and then with the second album, which what this band did, they managed to like refine the sound. And because Stranger Fruit is the superior work, but I think this is important just because it's kind of like you said, it's like an embryonic representation of something that the scene had never heard before.
Yeah, absolutely. So. Like it really, it's really beautiful that they have that, and it's that to my view, their manifesto for being badasses. So, 10 out of 10 Zeal Ardor. Thank you very much for doing that for us and yourself. So next, Memoriam, To the End, 2021, released in March.
Yeah, I've got a lot I could say about this album. Well, firstly, I'll start with that I really liked it and thought it was great. And I think, I've got to give credit to the guys in the band for kind of like doing their best, not necessarily to step out of the shadow of Boat Thrower, but like to carve out a different kind of path where they're not overshadowed by the previous sort of works, because it's a super group of sorts. I mean, you've got like you've got members from the Benediction, the US Massacre, the Sacrilege, and obviously Boat Thrower, Carl Willits, legendary vocalist. And one thing I thought was super cool, this is the first album that features the new drummer, Spiky T. Smith.
He is interesting.
And I really, really liked the drumming on this album. I thought it added a whole new dimension to the band's sound. It just kind of made everything a bit more kind of tighter and syncopated and gave it more of a modern sound. So
Spiky T. Smith, he joined in 2020. He has played drums in Sacrilege, but also played drums in Morrissey between 1999 and 2001.
Wow, there you go.
And The Damned and Killing Joke.
Oh, shit.
And at least 10 other bands, because I looked through his stuff and there was just like so many bands. But it's really cool that he's drummed for Morrissey as well. That's really like unusual. I hate Morrissey, but that's cool that he drummed for him.
Yeah, no, I did not know that. No, that's cool.
It's a weird connection, isn't it?
But it's one of the tracks which I thought was I believe it was Failure to Comply. Well, there's certain points throughout the whole album where I thought they adopted a more modern approach. There was times where I was almost questioning myself. I was thinking, shit, is this actually Memoriam? Because it sounded almost like... It's a bit different to their... Yeah, they've evolved. Like they've got a real kind of like, it's modern production, it's got modern sounds, and even some of the riffs are like a more, like there was one of the tracks which sounded even a bit like a prong song, like a bit more neo thrash almost, which I thought was quite cool.
And there's one that sounds like Killing Joke, which is awesome.
That would be Mass Psychosis, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's it. It's so Killing Jokey. I think my favourite song. I love that kind of Killing Joke. What's up?
No, nothing. I think Carl Willett said in an interview that Killing Joke's his favourite band of all time.
Damn. Well, there you
I'm
go.
pretty
That's
sure
why
he
they
said
have a
that.
drummer that used to play in Killing Joke. Yeah.
See, first Killing Joke album I heard was their second self-titled one that had Dave Grohl playing drums on it.
Oh.
That album is so sick.
Is it?
Nina introduced me because all I knew was like Love Like Blood.
Yeah.
That's not even that.
Yeah, that's not even it's not
Yeah.
like and then you were like, yeah, no, this is an Asteroid, dude.
I was trying to write a song.
What the fuck?
I was trying to write a song that sounded like Asteroid. I was like,
Yeah.
I want it to be like Asteroid. I was like trying to,
Yeah.
I was trying to tell Shem. It was
Yeah.
like I just ended up saying Asteroid in stupid voice. I was just like, do it like this, Asteroid. And I was like trying to tell about how it works, and it just you
That
have to listen
album
to the
is
song.
so sick.
It's such a good
So
album.
fucking good.
It's so good. Like the Killing Joke vibes were fantastic on the album. So it's really cool to know that Carl loves Killing Joke that much because me and Shem love Killing, and you love them, right?
Yeah, my dad was a Killing Joke fan, so
Nice.
yeah.
I saw them live once at Sinosphere, and they played Asteroid, and everyone lost their shit. It was amazing.
Asteroid.
Yeah, everyone was just like Asteroid. Like thousands of people were just doing Asteroid in that like funny voice. It's fantastic.
Have you ever watched videos of them playing it live?
I mean, I saw them play it live.
No, but
I've
like
watched
other, I don't know
videos.
what it was like when you saw it per se, but it's really funny when you see them play it like other times, and like the guitar, whoever's playing the guitar is like obviously not like a metal guy, and he just doesn't get like the heavy soul of the guitar. It's like on the record, it's so fucking
That's
heavy.
so
But
funny.
live, there's times like I watched a video of him playing it like House of Blues, and they were just like.
No way. So Jazz Coleman like gives me serious Ian McShane vibes.
Yeah.
The first time I saw Ian McShane, I was like, is that Jazz Coleman?
Yeah.
Is he also an actor? But no, like I swear, I just kind of want them both to like do something together and merge.
They've both got eyes that look like they've seen too much.
They both look like shamans.
Yeah.
I would probably
Ian
join their
McShane.
cult.
Ian
Yeah.
Is he the one that's in American Gods?
I
Yeah,
love him in American
And he was
Gods.
in Game of Thrones for an episode or two.
He's also in that film with one of those, this some like shit British comedian where he's like a tango instructor.
Oh yeah.
It's really good. It's like Tango Nights or something. It's actually a really good film.
Yeah.
And it's got Kayvon Novak in it, and he's like some awesome gay Iranian guy, and he's like really.
Yeah, that's cool.
It's so good. Yeah.
It's going on before we move on from Killing Joke. Do you remember the whole riff they had with Nirvana over "Come As You Are"?
I do.
So I think they claimed. I can't remember which.
It does sound
it's
exactly
it's
the
a
same.
direct rip. Yeah.
Yeah.
Kurt literally was like, yeah, no, I stole the riff.
Yeah.
Yeah, they signed over the rights to it, no?
Oh, did they?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure if you look at it, like they
Yeah.
like I think it's just considered to have been written by Killing Joke now. That song.
Yeah.
Damn right.
They
as it
signed
should.
over the publishing because it's such a direct rip.
Yeah.
The intro of Futurama reminds me of a Nirvana song.
Dun, 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 dun. Oh yeah, shit, I can hear that. Yeah,
Yeah.
never clocked that before.
There you go.
Funny, that reminds me. Just going quickly back to Zeal Ardor. There's a song that sounds like Lowrider. You know that song by War. Like the bass line at the beginning sounds like the second last track on that Zeal Ardor EP.
I find when I listen to pop that like so many pop songs have the same bass line as oh my god I forgot the song.
Awesome.
I
How's it go? Sing it.
can't remember.
Yes. What? There can't be that
This
many
is the
songs.
worst anecdote.
No, this is great.
God damn it.
There's so many pop songs.
Do.
Oh,
Seven
White
Nation
Stripes.
Army.
A lot of pop songs have that similar bass line, and there's a few others like I just hear them repeated a lot. But I guess there's only so much you can write on the bass, especially if you're a pop artist.
Yeah, because that's even. Oh god, what was that? So I remember when I lost my
Oh, Niles
mind.
Barkley.
Yeah.
Remember,
You think
remember,
I'm crazy? Because the bass in that's like dun 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 dun.
Yeah.
Like note for note, it's like kind of similar the way it descends to Seven Nation Army as well.
Yeah, it's like really. I hear it so much, like a much amount. It's like Hans Zimmer recycling his riffs for other artists. I hate Hans Zimmer. He sucks.
Well, there you go.
Memoriam.
Memoriam. So I'm really negative today, aren't I?
I want to mention something cool about Carl Willett's
Please.
vocal performance on this album because I feel like this is the strongest Memoriam performance to date. And I think he's actually shown something that's even slightly different from anything he was doing in Bolt Thrower as well. Like there's some, I think it's even in the track, I think it is actually Mass Psychosis, where you can actually...
His vocals are very Jazz Coleman.
Yeah,
Yeah.
And I was going to say that, it actually does sound, one, it sounds a bit like Jazz Coleman, and it's that same thing, you know, where you can actually hear that accents come through as well. Like Barney from Napalm Death is a bit like that sometimes as well, you can hear his like Brummie accent come through. And it's just different dynamic, and I thought it was just super cool and just kind of more diverse and just a different flair to the band that I think was maybe not necessarily missing before, because I feel like Memoriam and all the members involved have earned the rights to record whatever music they want, because they'll stem from such legendary bands in a great scene. And that's actually, I think, why the music works. It's almost like the band members are making the music they want to make.
They don't have to prove anything.
No. Yeah. Exactly.
And like I agree, that is my favourite Carl Willetts vocal performance, because you can really hear his voice.
Yeah.
You know, he's just being himself, I feel. I don't know, maybe he's just being Jazz Coleman too, but like I really like how that sounds. Like you can hear his accent, and just the way he kind of shapes his performance is really cool. And it's really nice to hear that. And it's such a varied album. I feel like that's really interesting that they've done that.
Yeah.
And I think, I don't know if that's like how they chose to do it, how it happened naturally. They worked with Russ Russell for this album, who's a really bloody lovely guy. I love Russ Russell. He's worked with a lot of legendary bands, At the Gates, Dimmu Borgir, and a million more.
Did he do Carcass as well?
I think he might well have. I'm assuming the modern Carcass.
I think,
yeah. Russ Russell has done a shit ton, hasn't he?
We nearly worked with him.
Oh, no way. That's
cool.
Our schedules didn't work out.
Our schedules didn't match. He was booked up.
Yeah.
But he's actually, I've known him, like, not super close, but we bumped into each other a lot when I was younger. He's really nice. He's just so kind. So, yeah, go work with Russ Russell if you can afford to.
Yeah, the production is like insane, and I think
so
like
good.
The drums sound amazing on this. And there's one track, the title track, To the End, and it's. And can I just say, like, this style of music just goes so hand in hand with like that sort of lyrical, the whole thing about war and the kind of the trench warfare thing, and it's like so many bands do it well. You know, like Hailed Bullets, you know, it's a big Dutch thing. Like bands like Hailed Bullets and
Hailed Bullets is great. I remember like I was actually reviewing albums properly, and that album came. I'd never listened to them. I was like, this is really good. It was the Japanese aeroplane.
Yeah, I don't know the name of that album.
I can't remember what it's called. It's a really good album. It was like a great way to be introduced to them.
They're a great band.
They're so good. It's brutal.
But that track To the End, it's just like there's moments where the drums almost sound like, you know, that like it's like a fucking bomb going off.
What's the first song?
The first song is the most Bolt Thrower song.
The first song, when the first song comes on, I'm so pumped I want to get in a fight.
So
it's
like that Josh Barnett energy.
Yeah, it's like ring entrance music. I could go and wrestle to that music. It's like you get so feel good. Like if I still went out to clubs and drank, I would listen to that while I was getting ready, because it's such a feel-good track.
I would listen to Bolt Thrower before doing jiu-jitsu.
Really?
All the time, and wrestling.
It's got that energy.
Well, you know Josh Barnett, like he... Of course, I told you guys 1,000 times, and I'm going to tell the internet to you, because you guys want to hear me talk. But my favourite wrestler, Josh Barnett, he's called the War Master, because he always listens to War Master, and he comes out to War Master before and during, like, his entrance... obviously. I'm assuming...
Not everyone listening is.
Oh, okay. I just... yeah, sorry, that was a bit interesting to me. If you don't know what I'm talking about, there is an amazing band called Bolt Thrower, and they do, like, war music, Warhammer music. It's fucking cool. Go listen to them. If you don't know them, they're one of those bands that are, like, seminal bands. They're not quite underground, they're not quite mainstream. They're just fucking legendary, and there isn't a single bad album that you can go into with them. Just go listen to them. You will thank me for it. If you don't thank me for it, let me know why I didn't like it, because we need to look into that.
I'd say,
sorry, we're all so excited. We all want to talk.
Thrower is so good.
Is there a better metal? I personally think that Carl Willetts is the best metal vocalist. He's my favourite personally. I think he's my favourite.
I don't think you can all metal. I don't think you can say
I think Carl Willetts
is better.
No, Carl Willetts. No, maybe not technically. Like he's not doing like falsettos and stuff, but he's my favourite.
His voice works in the context of music.
It so fits the context of the music. It's so characterful.
I would divide it between kind of harsh and clean. That's kind of how I do it. Like one of my favourite clean vocals is Michael Kiske.
We're talking about Bolt Thrower and Carl
What did you say to the singer of your band?
Wait, who did he say? I missed it.
He said clean vocals are for wimps.
I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
You will be after this.
Your vocals are amazing.
You have to say that because you just said that they're for wimps.
Michael Kiske is the clean vocalist.
I was
going
gonna
to
say clean. I don't know. What about?
Who's Kiske again?
Halloween.
Oh, I've never listened to
Kiske's got amazing vocals, but I personally really like. Why am I forgetting everything? I have dementia today.
What's the band?
For fuck's sake, Judas Priest.
Rob Halford.
Yeah. Oh yeah, obviously Rob.
Rob is amazing.
I think he's one of the best. Because he does, like, his screams are just fucking amazing, and his vocal technique is good.
I mean, Rob can have number 2, but Carl's still number 1 for me.
There's so many harsh
We're
vocalists.
talking about clean versus harsh.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
I like.
Harsh, I don't know.
I really have always had a soft spot for Lord Worm from Cryptopsy because it's the most frenzied vocals I've ever heard. Like, technically, they're not proficient. He doesn't enunciate anything. Like, the phrasing is shit, but, like, it just works so well. I don't know, but...
I think, for me, Death and Admiral Angry, they have, like, my favourite.
Yeah, Chuck's are very good as well.
I just really like how he sounds. I don't know, there's just something really, like, good about it.
Carl Willetts, to me, like, there's not very many... I'm a big metal guy and I love metal, right? And I don't really look up to a lot of metal people. But the fact that Carl Willetts is openly like
anti-fascist.
Yeah, and he's openly anti-fascist. He's openly like fuck racist. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, he's great.
He's openly, and like the fact that when he sings, he sounds like embodied war metal. Like fucking, he's like some kind of primate ready to tear the arms off something. Like he just really embodies everything that I always thought metal was about when I was growing up. And when I finally got into Bulkfire for the first time, I was like, why isn't everything like this, you know?
He sounds like a general in the midst of battle. And
Yeah.
he's like shouting orders, or he's like, I feel like he sounds like he's on a battlefield. And I think it's really important as well for bands that are playing war metal to be openly, to be open about their stance. Because there are a lot of bands that play war metal that are idolizing war and that are obsessed with some wars that are not so great politically to be obsessed with in ways that are kind of shit. But then there are people like Carl Willetts, and there are war bands that are doing war in the Warhammer way of being like, war fucking sucks and it's brutal, and here's why, you know. And as someone who like, I have family members who have been directly affected by war. I have read accounts of people I know who've been in war who've described accurately what it looks like and what it feels like when your best friend's head is crushed by the tracks of a tank. And like, you're a teenager and it's the first time you've seen someone die and it's your best friend and their brains are in front of you. And like, that's something I've grown up with, and that's so different for me to listen to this kind of music in that context when someone's like, I fucking love war, oh, Nazis are so cool, they look great, let's wear some uniforms. So to me, if I'm going to listen to that music, I have to check. I have to know like what their stance is, because I don't want to fucking listen to that kind of shit.
Yeah. Fuck those people.
Right. Fuck them.
Fuck those people.
Go and actually like experience and read and understand the trauma of war, and then go and enjoy that like fucking shitty like wanking over some World War II shit like, that way.
Yeah. Do you know what? It's true. And like, even in this album, there's one track called Vacant Stare, and I'm pretty sure it's about PTSD. And like, and that is the real horror of war, really. I mean, how many people are fucked up by it and have never lived, and a lot of them end up killing themselves. But
there are generations of people who've experienced like Vietnam. Those people just weren't cared for.
I hate the stories of people coming back from like Vietnam, and then they wouldn't be able. They go back to their homes and they couldn't sleep in their bed. They had to go and sleep in the garden because they didn't know how to like sleep in bed anymore.
It's an utterly meaningless war.
It's so horrible.
I mean, pretty much all wars are utterly meaningless, and like they're unnecessary ways of resolving conflicts that don't actually resolve anything, right? It's just the most fucking stupid human action there is. And then, you know, these people who were sent there not knowing, like in World War I and II, people didn't know why they were fighting a war.
No.
They were just torn apart from their families, and they were kids, and they were just sent to these trenches and battlegrounds and fed drugs that they didn't know what they were doing to their bodies. And like, existentially, that's fucking terrifying and horrible and weird. And like, there are people now who are making art about it in ways that are really disrespectful, in my view, to those people. Like, if you truly... I'm ranting a lot, sorry. But if you truly, like, want to respect...
It's your podcast, you should rant.
If you want to fucking respect the heritage of your country, fucking do it right.
Yeah.
You know?
And I think you've got to recognise the trauma that stems from it, and the fact that, you know, you could glorify it as much as you want, but at the end of the day, we sent loads of young people to their deaths. And it's like, you know, like my granddad was lucky enough to survive, and by his fucking survival was the only reason why I'm here. And he got told, oh, there's a medal that you earned that you need to pick up. And he was like, fuck that. I don't want no fucking medal.
Yeah.
Like, I'm fucked. Like, he was in, like, he had oxygen for the rest of his life because he was stuck in the water for 3 days.
Jesus
and it was just, you know what I mean? It's only through his volition and fucking desire to survive that, you know, it's like the whole butterfly effect, and you know, just one thing's different, you wouldn't exist. But, you know, but that man's determination to come back home is the only reason why I'm still here. And he didn't have a choice, so he didn't want to go to war.
One of my granddads was a bomber. He was like an ace bomber in the war, and he killed loads of people. And that was my dad's dad. And then my mother's dad was a conscientious objector because he was a preacher. He was like a religious man. He refused to kill people.
Yeah.
Because he went against the teachings of the Bible, and he went to prison.
Yeah.
He went to prison. People would spit on him in the street and call him a coward because he didn't go to war. And they were like, "You're you scum." Da, da, da. He got hate mail, all this kind of stuff because he wouldn't go to war because he didn't believe in killing people.
People are like brainwashed from an early age to like glorify and idolize war. And I remember when I was growing up, there would be like this army thing that they do at my school. The army would come and everyone would have a school trip and do all these cool army things and do an obstacle course. And my mum was like, I was the only person in my year not allowed to go. And everyone thought I was a fucking loser. And that my parents were like freaks because... And they literally just called me a freak because I didn't go to this army day. And like, from that day, like a bunch of kids ended up going to the army. You know, they probably served in Iraq or some shit.
I wanted to.
Yeah, like,
when it came to my school, it seems like the coolest thing in the world.
They're brainwashing kids. They're like, oh look, it's like an obstacle course, and you'll get money, and you'll get insurance. It's gonna be great. And like, I don't mean any disrespect for anyone who's in the army. I absolutely don't. But I do have a problem with the way that war is represented because it's not actually the way it's just like, oh, it's like Call of Duty. You know,
yeah.
Like, it's you're just gonna go over. You're gonna kill some faceless brown people. Because it's always brown people, isn't it? And you know, it's gonna be fine. You're protecting your country. What are you even protecting your country from? Like when you're in Afghanistan, right?
No, that's bullshit. I mean, it's like even the whole stupid domino effect thing with the Vietnam War. Like, it was just like, oh, well, let's get them before they become communist and all this bullshit.
Yeah.
But like, you know, I'll go ahead and say it. I've always had sympathy, I would say is the best word to describe it, for the, like, World War I and II veterans.
100% were forced.
Yeah. But, like, you know, when it comes to the new war, I don't have the same level of sympathy, or definitely not respect. I don't, because at the end of the day, it's still a choice. I do understand that people who have been kind of, like you said, brainwashed or indoctrinated from a young age believe that it's for a good cause. And But, you know, at the end of the day, you know, my belief is... Like, I do not think I could kill another human being unless it was the most dire of circumstances, of like fight or flight, if I was literally fighting for my life. But like, you know, so to me it's such an alien concept to be under any form of mental capacity that I think it's a good idea to go somewhere into someone else's country and kill people. It's just... Yeah. But it's, I don't know, it's alien to me. But
have you seen those before and after pictures of men that have gone to war?
I bet they just look fucking...
They're horrifying.
Yeah.
Because like you just see these like happy young men, and then they come back and they just look... They look like killers, and they look fucked up.
Yeah.
Like they don't look okay. And yeah, like it's interesting because I love fantasy. Me and Shem love fantasy, and we love Warhammer, and we love like battle games and shit. And I love epic descriptions of battle in like Lord of the Rings, but I don't enjoy them in like, I think there's this weird kind of line that's very difficult to describe of like appreciating weaponry and like machismo.
Do you know the difference?
Like, what's the difference?
If Memoriam had Union Jacks all over their t-shirts,
yes, if Memoriam were
then
Iron
they would
Maiden.
probably suck. Yeah, if Memoriam were more like that's the difference between Memoriam because when it says like war fucking sucks.
Right.
I'm obsessed with it because we keep making the same mistake as a race, and I don't fucking understand why we keep doing this. It's the worst thing in the world.
And you know what? I'll go ahead and record it and say it. Like, that's why fucking
And Bruce
Sabaton-
Dickinson will wear a fucking flight hat and the fucking in Wembley, and everyone will go, yay!
But like, oh, fucking Sabaton, right? Like, it's really, it's really, enough said. It's really weird for me, I'm definitely going to talk about recent Sabaton news, but it's really weird for me how they could create music that sounds so fucking happy. Like, it's the happiest sounding, most joyful sounding shit.
The descriptions of war.
Yeah, and it's like, I don't, it like, and like, I've listened to Sabaton, and there's some tracks, and okay, this is good power metal for what it is, but like, there's just something that always been a bit insincere about it all.
Yeah. It's like the Corpiclani of war.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it.
Do you know, when you mentioned Hail of Bullets earlier, I only found out about Crystal Nacht because of Hail of Bullets.
No.
And I didn't get taught about it.
What?
I didn't get taught about it in school, and I never was that interested in what I found out about it.
Most
Yeah, I had no idea about it.
No.
Until
We did World War II in school every year for history, and all we learned about was rationing and bomb shelters and the Union Jack. That's pretty much all we did. We never actually learned about the brutality of the war.
My school was like, England ruled. Like,
It was the Tudors. Oh, Henry VIII. You know.
We covered the Battle of the Somme, because that was still...
We did the Somme.
Yeah, because that was still to the day the most casualties in a single sort of battle/conflict. Well, that's been reported anyway. And
Right.
like, yeah, no doubt there's, I mean, fucking them, just look at Armenia, for example.
Yeah,
But,
genocide doesn't count as war.
No, that's
because
true.
they can't fight back.
Yeah, that's true. I don't know why I laughed, but no, like fucking man, school's fucked, man. It's, the way history's taught. Do you know what the way history was taught in my school was? You got a better grade in history as long as you practice your source questions. As long as you applied your English knowledge of how to write and structure a paragraph, that was more important than the shit you were writing about. They didn't give a fuck about you. You know, like adding any of your own context to it, as long as you can relate it to different sort of political or sociological perspectives, that was the most important thing. You could regurgitate the textbook and do it in your own words, because plagiarism is really bad as well, apparently. You know, like, you know, you've got to copy it, but copy it in your own words.
Right, and that's
which is such a weird message.
It's ironic, because that's literally how this whole government and, like, everything works. It's like, because we've been taught to just grift in this shitty way, and apparently that's, like, what gets you the grade.
Yeah.
We just do, like, the most half-hearted... Like, just look at how business and commerce and, like, capitalism and marketing works. It's the most fucking half-hearted shit. It's just people copying a press release and changing it a little bit, or like, you know, going to the boss and just saying what's on the job description a little bit differently. And like, oh, you're perfect. You're exactly what we need, and you're just fitting yourself in these molds.
But the crazy thing in most industries, I won't go too much of a tangent here, but like in most industries, you'll find that people work half as hard as they can do, because they know if they work to their full capacity, they're going to be taking the piss.
Yeah.
And it's like, so it's created this weird fucking mindset where we kind of like naturally know, oh shit, I can't work too hard here because this is going to be expected of me all the time, and I'm going to be fucking taken advantage of.
Ridden into the
ground. So fucked up.
And we're sold this fake concept of meritocracy, which is the idea that if you work really hard, then you'll get what you deserve. Which implies that people who are in shitty situations deserve what they've got.
Yeah.
Which is why people treat homeless people really badly. We're like, and this idea just completely ignores the fact that some people are born rich, some people are born poor, some people are born in places where the other people are disgusted because of like some random like attribute that they've got, like be it caste or class or skin colour.
It's the inherent flaw
like,
of conservatism.
Meritocracy is the most stupid fucking blind idea. I'm really politically angry today.
That's good. We're talking about Memoriam, and like,
I guess this is right. Yeah.
Is there a song on this album called "Austerity Kills," or is that the one before?
Ooh.
That's the one before. It's not this album.
There is a BLM song on this album, "Failure to Comply."
Yeah, I got that.
Is about the
That's the first
statues
one I
as
know.
well?
It's like a protest song.
So I took some of the lyrics. It says, resist, refuse, protest. When justice is repressed, provoked, enraged, oppressed, this anger must be heard. Failure to comply, protest, refuse, resist, or prejudice dismissed. We shall not desist to create a better world. That's so wonderful.
That song, In the Light, I think they released that song, and then pretty soon afterwards all that shit about the Conservatives going, oh, if you protest...
Yeah, right.
You're going to go to prison for 10 years.
It's in the timing and the fact that this was probably written in the summer during BLM.
Yeah.
So like the
It's
timing,
got worse.
It's got so much fucking worse. This country, I if I could go back home, I fucking would.
Yeah, right.
You know? Like,
People don't fucking get that.
I want to do a GoFundMe that targets racists. to like raise as much money as I can to
So we
just
can
emigrate
leave.
away from here.
Yeah, God. My family is like,
Go back
I'm
home,
English and I
family.
want to go anywhere but here. I hate it here.
Yeah, I've literally looked into a lot of the legal aspects of immigrating because fuck this.
Well, they're closing all the venues. You know what I mean? What other reason is there really
I'm
going to
just
be
not
to
welcome
stay
here.
Yeah.
I'm just not welcome. Like, I walk down any street that's not in London and people are like, what the fuck is that? You know, you can just see it. Like, remember when me and Shem went on holiday with my mum and my aunt, and we would walk down the seaside town and people in the street would like stop and fucking stare at us because we weren't the right fucking shade of peach or whatever it is that we're supposed to be.
Or we weren't just all wearing North Face gilets.
They were wearing gilets and cashmere. Yeah.
The anoraks are pretty comfortable.
Are they really? I'll look into
I
that.
But, do you know, I remember when I first listened to Failure to Comply, I was like, why does this remind me of Sepultura? It took ages to click. It has the words fucking refuse and resist.
Oh yeah, refuse, resist.
I was like, obviously, I'm sharp today.
Carl Willett's like, I think because he sings more like a hardcore singer than a metal singer as well.
Oh, that's
I think.
interesting. Yeah.
If you look at Carl Willett's, like if you listen to like Memoriam,
Yeah.
more Memoriam than Bolt Thrower. If you listen to like Memoriam next to like Harm's Way,
Yeah.
the way like he's really rhythmic with the way he
Do you think that's
uses
because
his
of
voice.
punk, or do you think that's because of hardcore?
Yeah, I was gonna say it's because he's like an old punk head.
Because
you
he's
know,
like, because of Benediction, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, they're just like, what's her name? Joe Bench used to always wear like UK Subs t-shirts, and they were like a big punk band. And like he was talking about the Damned as well.
Well, the drummers.
And the drummers in the Damned as well.
Frank Healy
yeah.
on bass was in Benediction. Carl Willetts did some time in Benediction, not to make it sound like prison, but it's not. And then the guitarist Scott Fairfax, he was also an anal back charge.
What?
And this is interesting. So Scott Fairfax and Frank Healy have both played in a band called Cerebral Fix, but 20 years apart. So Frank Healy
That's
played in
mental.
them in like the 90s.
That's crazy.
And then Fairfax in like the late 2000 noughties, whatever the fuck you call them.
Fairfax is still in Massacre though, isn't he? I think he's still an active member in Massacre.
Believe so. He's also in a band called Emotionless Fucking Scab. I don't know if they're still around.
Yeah.
Interesting name.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is interesting, like the band members. I have a funny story about Frank Healy. I wasn't sure if I was going to tell it on the podcast. However, first time I ever did journalism press, the first year I managed to somehow get pressed to Bloodstock.
Yeah.
I was about, I think, 17 years old, and I interviewed Benediction because they were playing. I think it was this Bloodstock like 2011 or something
That
like
would be
that.
when Dave Hunt was in the band as well from Null Mathrak.
I honestly don't remember. However, I interviewed the whole band Benediction, which first off was like herding cats because every single member was drunk. So like the PR was like kind of grabbing one and bringing them, and then another one would wander off, and then another one would have to come back, and it took like 10 minutes to assemble the band. They were all just like, you know, like had beers and pints, like, oh, I'm just gonna go get another one from the bar, and then they'd go and come back. So it took me a long time, and you only get a certain amount of time with the band. So, and I was really excited about interviewing Benediction. Had done loads of research, and I was really nervous because I was like some little teenage girl, and there were all these like old punk guys, and they all came, and I started asking my questions, and I guess I was new, so I maybe asked some bad questions, but I think it was Frank. And I was like, oh, so you know, how come you guys are still going? What like drives you? And he was just like, oh, I just want the money. And all I care about is the money and the beer. And I was like, oh, okay. And I just kept trying to ask him questions, and they were just giving me like, they were just kind of like wandering off and like not answering and talking to each other, and it was like, he was a little bit rude, I'd say, but I think they were just really drunk. And I was, to them I was just some like tiny little baby human girl. It wasn't like, yeah.
The thing is about Bloodstock is like, that is the nature of the festival in the sense that most people get fucked up at that festival. Mm-hmm. Like, and I think your bands are definitely not fucking exempt.
I saw some bands do some epic vomiting.
Oh.
I would love that.
There was I don't know if I should talk about this on the podcast, but there was this awesome girl. She doesn't do journalism anymore, but she would mix these insane cocktails. Like, they tasted like colours and they didn't taste like alcohol, but they would get you incredibly fucked. And she made like this beer bomb, but it wasn't beer, it was like a mixture of vodka and loads of spirits, and I can't remember what she called it, like love juice, I think is what she called it. And she got what they call bonded by blood. She got them to drink from it in the interview, and after the interview, the guy walked out. This was like 10 minutes after he'd had this beer bong thing, and he shook the hand of the next interviewer and then just projectile vomited everywhere.
Oh no.
It was amazing. He literally like had her hand in his hand and just
Bonded
went,
by
and
chunks.
he went, hello. He was like, hello, my name is... He did it exactly like that. Instead of saying his name, he just vomited everywhere.
I love that shit.
It was so funny.
Oh, it's too
And like, and the PR went mental. She was so angry. And Joanna, she was like, they hadn't played their set yet. And this guy just got completely fucked. Yeah, that was pretty amazing first festival experience, really.
The one time I drank too much before I played a gig, I played the old 12 bar in the Denmark Street when it was still there.
Yeah.
Oh,
And
yeah.
when it was still there, there used to be a hole, and I drank too many beers, and I staggered back too far, and I fell down the hole.
That's so funny.
Never again.
Oh my god.
There's a really good clip of Chris Martin from Coldplay falling on stage, and it's fucking hilarious. So he's stumbling for like 20 seconds. They're the best ones when they're so desperately trying to remain standing.
You're that guy that's falling on the ice and he falls
Oh
like...
my god, that's the best clip ever. Especially the edit with him with the fucking lightsabers. Oh, too fucking
See,
good.
you never get Carl Willis doing that.
Man, he's a fucking trooper.
Yeah.
Is that all you've got to say about him?
Yeah, more or less. I mean, I could chat for a while about the album, but just saying just different versions of the same shit I've said already. One track I also really liked, just very quickly, was Each Step One Closer to the Grave. So it felt almost like, because it was talking about death, of course, and the finality of it, which is a common lyrical theme. And it felt like quite a good, because one thing I found really cool about Memoriam as a band is it was kind of initially meant to be a tribute to the late drummer Martin Kiddie Kearns, who died. So I think that was quite a sweet notion. And this track just kind of reminds me, it almost sounds a bit like a tribute to maybe like lost friends over the years and stuff. And I think,
kind of like symbolic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I thought that was quite a good track, because it has there's some doomy elements on the album I really liked. It kind of reminds me of early Paradise Lost, who Nina loves, and My Dying Bride.
I don't love them. I really hate
Me and Floyd legit.
I love Paradise Lost.
They're so dope.
It just sounds too much like Metallica, I'm sorry.
I love them.
It's like a cross between Metallica and Down, my two least favourite bands apart from Iron Maiden. Sorry.
But yeah, no, I mean, great job. I really like this album. I think they've done a good job. And and the great artwork again by Dan Seagrave, who I've been a long time fan of.
OG.
And one thing I want to say quickly as well was it's always cool and kind of refreshing to hear, I used to term older because it sounds a bit patronising, but seasoned metal musicians still creating music that's relevant and fresh. And,
They're
it's
not
also,
boomers.
yeah, and it's like,
they're not boomers.
Yeah.
it's like testament by bands like Carcass as well. Like no one was expecting Surgical Steel to be good.
Oh my god, was it fucking good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Paradise Lost is still fucking sick, in my opinion. They
I think
released
they're
some good shit.
better.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which is good.
But and then At the Gates as well. Like I think they've released a couple of good albums recently, and it's just it's always refreshing to hear that there's kind of life in the older bands, and it's funny because I feel like that's something you don't get in the thrash scene. So I feel like I'll go on the limb here. So I feel like the big four are trading on their first couple of albums and fucking their seminal works, and they've released nothing but dog shit in like the last.
I feel like people buy their stuff because they feel like they're supposed to.
Yeah. But they just seem like thrash is out of time, whereas like death metal and like
magnetic.
Yeah. What is that?
Yeah.
I could just feel the dad energy that went through the album.
Such dad energy. And that stupid album where they ripped off the Crowbar album cover with the stupid faces.
Yes, that's true. That's hardwired to self-destruct.
Man, like I love Metallica so much growing up, but now I'm just like, guys, please, guys.
I'm so glad I missed that shit.
Guys, please.
It's so lame.
Like, but they have enough money. They could just pay someone to do good art. I don't get it.
They probably just have fun doing it. I don't blame them. If I was Metallica, I'd still do Metallica.
Dad energy is very apt, I think.
Yeah.
Fair enough, but I reckon that wraps it up for me anyway. That covers everything.
Thank you so much for listening and watching. Feel free to like and subscribe. If you're a musician or a music person and you want to be on the podcast, let us know. We are interested in hearing from you. And thank you for watching and listening. I'm out.
Until next time, which...